Christmas season, we are yet still thinking about what took place there in Bethlehem. And we go once again to Matthew and to Luke to find two fascinating accounts that are recorded for us that fill in just a tiny little bit between the coming of Jesus to be born in Bethlehem and when he comes to the Jordan River. We would desperately like to have more detail, but we are given this little tiny bit. The first account, of course, comes from Matthew's Gospel in chapter 2, where we have the Magi, the wise men who came from the east, and we will come back to that. Luke, at the age of 12, Jesus when he was 12 years of age, Luke records for us how that Jesus, with his parents, they go to Jerusalem, and it was there that Jesus lingers behind, and in frantic search, Jesus' parents come back, Mary and Joseph, to search for the child, and they find him interacting with amazed religious leaders who are confounded by his wisdom. But the first of the two, especially at this time of year, we consider how that those wise men, whether there were 3 or whether there were 33, we don't know. We simply know that there were 3 gifts that they brought. They come and they search for Jesus. They search for the one who has been born King of the Jews. Last week we considered how that the shepherds came from their fields and how that they came and bowed before Jesus and then went back utterly amazed at what they had seen and heard. And Mary ponders those things in her heart. It seems that Mary and Joseph would linger there in Bethlehem, and no wonder. This was the heritage, this was the parental home of Joseph. He would have likely had family there where they could have stayed for some time, and they are no longer in the barn, they are no longer there in the stable, but they are in a house of some kind, and it is there that the wise men find Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus. Go with me to Matthew chapter 2. And of course, in our nativity scenes, we very often set the shepherds on one side and the wise men on the other as though they were all clustered there together, but not so. Here we have months, perhaps, that have gone by, and now the wise men come. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, this is Herod the Great, notorious for his vicious rule, we read that Magi, or wise men, they arrive from the east in Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who is born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east. And they came for a specific purpose. They did not come to dialogue on equal terms with this one who had been born King of the Jews. They came in order to worship him, to declare his worth, and that he was great, and that he deserved their worship. Herod, as I said, was notorious for his vicious rule. That extended not just to his subjects, but that extended to his wife and to his family as well. Herod the king, when he heard this, was deeply troubled. And, of course, with such a ruler, with such a potentate, all Jerusalem, all his subjects, not knowing what would the crazy man do next, all Jerusalem was troubled along with him. Herod calls together the chief priests and scribes of the people, and he wanted to know where the King of the Jews would be born, where the Messiah was to be born. And they respond to him. They knew that Micah, in his prophecy, chapter 5, had clearly declared that it was to be in Bethlehem of Judea. And they quote, And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the leaders of Judah. Now, no one in the natural sense would pinpoint Bethlehem, that little dot on the map just outside of Jerusalem. No one would have pinpointed Bethlehem except that it was David's city. And they say, Bethlehem, for out of you, Micah declared, shall come forth a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. And Herod turns back to those who had come to him from the east, and he secretly calls them and determined from them the exact time that star had appeared. That was vitally important for him, because he wanted to know exactly when it was that this appeared, lest there should be any devious conniving whereby these would escape from him, as in fact they did, and he was left to his own resources, his own brutality, to find, or hopefully find, the child who was born there. And he sent them, verse 8, to Bethlehem and said, go, search carefully for the child, and when you have found him, report to me, so that I too may come and worship him. A blatant lie. Herod had no intention of worshiping the child. He worshiped himself. He was absolutely consumed with himself and with his hold on power, and there was no desire in his heart, but he wanted to get to the child. He wanted to get there, that he might extinguish, that he might snuff out this one who would rise, and that others might say, he is the rightful heir of the throne of Israel. And so after hearing the king, these ones, they go, and they went their way. The star which they had seen in the east, it continued to guide them on their way, and they came to where the place of where the child was. When they saw the star, we read, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. Here were tender hearts. Here were true hearts. Here were hearts that wanted to surrender and submit themselves to this one who had come from heaven's glory, that he might live among you and me and our like. And verse 11, after coming into the house, they saw the child. Was Jesus walking by this time? Was he uttering his first words? But they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and what did they do? It says they fell to the ground and they worshiped him. Frequently that very term is given to us. This was the purpose which they had set out for, and here it is that they are carrying out that very thing. They come to Jesus and they worship the child. They worship his splendor and his greatness, and they had come with gifts. And opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and being warned of God in a dream not to go back to that tyrant Herod, they left for their own country by another way. I would invite you to come into the house and to see the one who has come from heaven's glories, that he might be our redeeming Savior. And I would invite you. You might say, oh, what's so special about him? I would come and that you would worship him, that you would bow before him, that you would adore him, and that you would see in him all of God incarnate.
Yes, there's room.